So I'm Michael Figueroa. I'm an assistant professor in the Department of Music, and I'm currently associate director for the Carolina Center for Jewish Studies. So I've got two research projects going at the moment. I'm transitioning from one to the other. My first major project looks at the intersection of music, politics, and religion in the city of Jerusalem, specifically looking at how musicians have been a part of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and how they've informed public opinions on the meaning of the place of Jerusalem, who should rule it, how they've responded to contemporary political developments throughout the long 20th century. I've also looked at the way that sound itself, musical sound and otherwise, informs on-the-ground politics in the city, such as the broadcasting of the Islamic call to prayer, the ringing of church bells, the Shabbat siren, the way that sound broadcasts the presence of different religious communities in the urban fabric of the city itself, and how that dovetails with the sort of political discourse that exists, that hangs over the air of the city. And these approaches, the various approaches to looking at urban space that I've employed in Jerusalem has informed my newer research project, which looks at Arab American racial formation post 9/11 from a musical perspective. So it's a multi-sided project that takes me to multiple US cities such as Chicago, Washington DC, Philadelphia, New York, Los Angeles, Dearborn, and Detroit, where I look at these pockets of Arab American musicians who operate within but also between these various urban sites as they talk about their experiences as Arab Americans, the ways that their thinking about identity revolves around notions of race, external racialization, but also connections with the old country, with family, and the way that they use music both as a form of expression, but also as a kind of gathering, as an event, to work out these discussions in conversation with one another. The most surprising thing about this new research for me has been just how important music has been in this discursive process over the last 2 decades or so. I chose music as an entry point because that's my discipline. I think about music as a point of entry for every kind of research I do, but it turns out it's actually the primary site for working on ideas about individual identity, about community, and how that gets configured along racial lines or otherwise. So it's been a very nice surprise to see that my way of looking at things happens to connect very clearly to the way that people on the ground are holding these conversations. And it provides me sort of additional justification to continue using music as a critical point of entry into this much broader issue around Arab American racial identity. So my research has focused on the sort of race question, which has emerged, especially since 9/11 in Arab American communities. But I really hope to learn about how that connects to other kinds of identification that concern members of these communities. So using intersectionality, for example, to look at Arab American queerness, for example, to look at the way that other ways that gender and gender relations get configured. How these connections, these identity categories, if you will, help people connect with members of other communities, what kinds of racial alliances or solidarities might exist along these intersectional lines. These are all the future directions I see for this research. For me, the next steps are continuing ethnographic fieldwork in a more intensive way. As this is a multi-sided project, I have to get into the field a lot and get into multiple fields to understand how musicians move between, for example, Los Angeles and Dearborn and DC, or between Chicago and Philadelphia. And so being a part of these important conversations in the field is of utmost importance for letting people tell their own stories through my research.